Hi, I'm Willy Bearden. Welcome to Dialogue. This is the show where we bring people in and we have a one-on-one conversation for an hour. And I know people are watching because I see people all the time and they tell me, hey, you're the guy on TV. And I really like that because I get to ask the questions that I think the audience would like to hear too. And we really kind of get down to people's personalities and the things that move them about whether they're an artist or in any other line of endeavor. And but it's a wonderful thing, and I appreciate the opportunity to get to do this. Today, my guest is Keith Sykes, and you probably know a lot about Keith Sykes, but you're going to know a lot more at the end of this hour. Keith, thank you so much for agreeing to do this, man.
It's my pleasure, man. Thank you for having me.
Well, you know, you have done the big things. And is that, I mean, do you think about that a lot? Do you think about, I've done a lot of big stuff, been on the, stages all over the world. Do you think about that? Is that kind of in your DNA?
I usually put it in a different perspective. I've done some medium stuff. How's that?
Well,
it's large, medium, and small. I'm somewhere in there, but
well,
I don't know if it's, Bob Dylan's won the Nobel Prize. I'm just not there.
Right. Okay. All right. Well,
that's big stuff.
That is big stuff.
Willie Nelson's 92 or something and playing every night. So.
Right.
Anyway, yeah. There's I'm in there. I mean, I've done stuff I'm very proud of, and then I'm, succeeded more than some people and not as much as others. So I think the middle is a good place to just
okay.
me.
That's good. Let's kind of start at the beginning. What kind of kid were you?
Well, I think I was a pretty good kid to start, and then it all went downhill after that. No, but I was not a good student in school until I got to take classes that was something I was interested in.
Right.
So before then, I was just kind of sitting there doing enough to get by and go home. Yeah. But in the 11th grade, I got to take American literature, and which I had to take English the next year. English, I didn't enjoy it nowhere near like I did learning about the American people. And same thing with history. And I loved mechanical drawing and architectural drafting, that kind of stuff, which played a little bit or a small role with me after school. But those are kind of things I enjoyed. But I remember my mother trying to teach me to spell, and I would just cry.
Really?
I just sit there, I can't do it. I just got all teared up. I can't do it. You're asking more than I'm able to do,
Right.
And I can spell a little better now on my older years, but it was never fun or something for me until it got interesting to me.
Yeah.
And so now I like learning about that stuff.
Oh, that's great.
I just didn't for a long time.
Yeah. Did you, when you were a kid, did you listen to people around you? Were you that kind of kid who always kind of wanted to hear what the grown-ups were saying? Were you story-oriented?
In some parts of that. Some parts when they would talk about their health issues, which I totally get now.
Yeah, right.
But when you're 6, you're going, I don't care who's got cancer, who does. I mean,
Yeah.
But when they would tell me something about building something or any kind of thing that a kid could get interested in, I loved listening to people. I didn't, just because they were older or younger, it didn't matter to me.
Sure.
And so that's the kind of thing that interests me.
Yeah.
I guess you're leading up to my musical life here, and I'm glad you're taking it this way. Yeah. But because I really didn't get consumed by anything.
Yeah.
Like I did music until it came along.
Right. Right. Did your what were your parents like? Did you have any siblings too?
I have an older sister. She's 3 years older than me.
Oh.
And I love her 2 pieces, okay? And my brother-in-law. And my mother and father divorced, I think, when I was 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was 8, my mother took us to my grandmother's house in Paris, Tennessee. I'm from Murray. I'm the only person in my family born in Kentucky.
Oh, okay.
I didn't realize that till I started writing this book. I thought my sister was born in Kentucky. Not even she had the courtesy to be born in Kentucky. They all made me, so I'm an outlier in my own family. But where were we? I forgot what I was talking about.
Yeah, moved to your grandmother.
Oh yeah, we spent that summer at my grandmother's house, and my mother went to Drawn's business school down here.
Oh yeah, sure.
She hated that kind of stuff, so didn't. As soon as she could, she got into the medical field, which is where she spent the rest of her life, or her working life. And but she brought us down here, and I started 4th grade. My sister started the 7th grade.
What school were you in?
Treadwell.
At Treadwell,
Yes,
okay.
yes. We lived in a little duplex on Crump Avenue, on 6, 8 blocks or whatever it was from Treadwell. And when we moved, when I was 12, over to Freeman, that was just a lot closer, maybe 4 blocks. Cut my walk in half.
Yeah, yeah.
But all around Treadwell, and I left when I graduated high school. The next day, my mother dropped me off at the expressway, which just hadn't been open but a year or so.
Right.
And I hitchhiked up to Murray. So I get off at Jackson and go up 641, hitchhike up to my dad's house.
Wow.
And but I was hitchhiking around, a couple of years before that, hitchhiking up to my dad's house, or hitchhiking down to Florida and spend the summer down there, just hanging and doing.
Yeah.
My mother, she kind of gave me the rope so I could hang every now and then,
Sure.
And
oh, that's great. Were you one of those kids were you influenced, by Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg? Did you know the beats?
I'm pretty much on all that kind of stuff. I was Bob Dylan.
Oh, okay.
And Bob Dylan, to me, was and still is a major part of my musical thing.
Yeah.
But my big influence is people, there's so many people that influence you, but my cornerstone is, Hank Williams, Chuck Berry, and Bob Dylan.
Okay.
That's what, kept me thinking. And, but, when those, I keep losing my exact train of thought here because so much stuff is rushing through me right now. But just having, I started writing songs in study hall when I was about 15.
Okay.
And I'm supposed to be doing some work on stuff, but I've read books or plays or something like that, and then I'd try to write songs, and there's nothing really happening at that time.
Yeah.
So I started playing guitar in my senior year. And when I did that, my entire trajectory changed.
Really?
Well, when I was in 6th grade, they came and said, "Does anybody want to be in the band?" Of course, I raised my hand. I didn't know anything about anything. So, "What do you want to play drums?" "Oh, you can't play drums. There's too many drummers." So, okay, I'll go along with that. So in 11th grade, they asked me what I wanted to do. I said, "I think I want to be an architect." They says, "Oh, Keith, we don't think you'd want to do that. There's 5 years of college. You got to go through and all this stuff." And I said, "Well, okay." So I took their word for it. I didn't do that.
Yeah.
But, finally when I got the guitar playing, I just didn't care what they said anymore.
Sure.
And that was my thing.
Wow. What was your first guitar?
I got it up on Beale Street for $20 at Nathan Novick's
Really?
pawn shop. I have no idea what it was or what it said on the top or bottom. And, I did know a little bit about a friend of mine, my best friend in school, had a Goya nylon string guitar.
Oh, yeah.
He lent that to me one weekend.
Yeah.
And my sister had learned 4 chords. She was the musician in the family. She played clarinet and piano. And she taught me 4 chords on the guitar. And that was, and then I had to take his guitar back.
Yeah.
But the day after Christmas in 1965, somebody gave me a $20. I called it an adult present. There was no socks or no box of whatever. It's just like,
Right.
"Hey, okay, good. Well, I know what I'm going to do with this." I went up on Beale Street and found a guitar, and I knew I needed one that had an action that was reasonably good.
Sure, yeah.
So you could
Right.
get, because getting your first calluses and stuff, it's kind of tough. And
Yeah.
you have to have something that makes you want to go back. If it's just really, really, really hard, you get discouraged pretty easy.
Yeah.
So I knew that. That's all I knew.
Wow.
And so by the time I had that for 5 or 6 months, I learned some bar chords, and I think my daddy bought me a little Gibson D25.
Okay.
And I kept that until I bought my D28.
Yeah. Wow.
Martin D28.
Wow.
So I had it, around a year or something like that.
So did you hang out with any musicians when you were in high school, playing any bands or anything?
No, I used to love to hear the bands and everything. Larry Raspberry was from Treadwell, and we became friends.
Yeah.
After I moved back here in '74, even before then, we became close. Probably in 1970 when my first album came out or something, and we got a lot more close. But I always meant he was such a gas to know.
Oh, God.
This cat had more energy than 6 other kids put together. I mean, it was phenomenal to hang out with him. And I knew some other guys I really loved. They had a band called the Boys Blue. They were they were 1 year or 2 years younger than me, and but they sang great,
Yeah.
So I really liked all that. And what was going on in my head was Hank Williams songs and that structure, and then I found Bob Dylan about a year or so after I found Hank. But we were talking early about listening to older people and stuff. When I was still in high school, or just I went back to I heard about Jimmy Rogers, the father of country music. Well, let me go grab that, and I listened to that. Just soaking up everything I could. I don't understand people not listening to everything.
Yeah.
People who just listen to one thing or a new song, you're missing out on a bunch of good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so, back then Stax was kind of at its height.
Absolutely.
And did you know anybody from there, or were you aware that music was being made in Memphis like that?
I was aware of music. When I first got here in 1957, is that right? 57? Yeah, I would be 9. I was about a month or so from being 9 at 57. The big record was Great Balls of Fire, A Whole Lot of Shaking Going On, one of the two, and those are really exciting records to listen to.
Yeah. And
people would talk, the DJs would say, recorded right here in Memphis, and I'm going, I don't think about recording, but that's good with me,
Yeah, sure.
But you do, and then talk of Sam Phillips was, even in our elementary school, people talk about Sam Phillips, the guy who did Elvis, sold him and all this kind of stuff, sold his contract to finance his company. It was just lore. I just reveled in it.
Yeah. Wow.
And Sam Phillips was always a hero to me.
So you had started writing some songs. Was it because that it interested you, or did you think maybe that was a step in the right direction for you?
I don't know. I think there's always been a little seed in me or something. Even when I was a kid in Murray, something about songs that always was very intriguing to me. I don't know if maybe more than other people. I don't know. I've only me.
Yeah.
I can't tell. But when Your Cheating Heart, the movie came out.
Yeah.
I went to see that at the Poplar Plaza, and it really touched me, because my dad was a bad alcoholic. He was a great guy when he wasn't drinking, but if he drank, he just became another whole person.
Yeah.
And they kind of made up Hank Williams to be like that in this. And I was thinking, why do you want to do that? Why would you do that? But that's another person.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he's worried about that.
Exactly.
But man, Hank Williams, my buddy who I borrowed the guitar from gave me a Hank Williams record for Christmas one year. And I put it on. From these seeds, I hear those music when I was real little, and it just all came flooding back. And I just got deep into it, and the way he could write, and the songs that just was just phenomenally great.
Yeah.
So simple.
Yeah.
And the rhyme scheme and the iambic pentameter of it is just so great. It's impossible to write like that anymore. It was always impossible for me to write like that. But no one else is doing it either, because it's hard to do.
Yeah.
And to make it be, today I passed you on the street and my heart fell at your feet. I mean, come on. That's the first 2 lines.
Yeah.
And every line is as good or better than the one you heard before.
Yeah, it does. It takes you on a journey.
It's so simple, but who says my heart fell at your feet?
I know it.
Wow. That kind of thing. And then when I was a kid, you know, when you get in your teenage middle years, you know, you get to the rock and roll thing, and the first thing I ever saw live music was in Memphis. Outside of singing at church was in my church, pretty slim, you know. But a guy came out and did Johnny Be Good.
Okay.
And to me, he sounded as good as the record. Now,
yeah, right.
Just a kid, I don't know, but he looked a lot older than me at that, you know, when you're fourth grade.
Sure.
And I just got chills over my entire body, and it couldn't ever stop, you know. And so the Chuck Berry, you know, again, you spend more years growing up and getting into it a little bit, and you think, man, this guy has an entire book in 3 verses, you know, and you know everything about Johnny B. Good.
That's right.
You know everything about Nadine and you know, just like he's like, you know, a short story writer.
I know it.
And so that really, and then when I heard Bob Dylan, it's a Sunday night. I had my mom's car because I was over 16, so she'd let me drive on the weekends some. And Sunday night, and one of the DJs on one of the stations played Subterranean Homesick Blues.
Oh.
I went, oh.
Oh, man.
Wait a second.
Did you have to stop the car?
I just remember going, wow. You know, turn up a little bit. Just everything about that record. It was just loose and tight all at the same time.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was, and I don't think anybody else did either, but it spoke to me in that crazy way Dylan can do it. You know, people, you know, you can write Let It All Hang Out, and you know it doesn't, you know.
Right.
But when Dylan writes something, and it's as crazy as those images are, they speak to me. I know what he's talking about somehow, you know, and I think everybody does.
Yeah.
And so that's what got me started on him. So I went to the record store just as soon as I could get over, and I bought that record, which is his 5th album.
Right.
But that's all I knew about him. I found out later he wrote Blowing in the Wind when he was 21.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh,
yeah, that's pretty shocking just to think about that. I had kind of forgotten that he was 21.
Well, by that second album, he was doing that kind of stuff, that crazy imagery, you know, a mattress of war and all that stuff, and, you know, branch dripping blood and all this kind of stuff, and stand over your grave till I'm sure you're dead.
Yeah.
You know, and then he had humorous songs on the same record, and fast songs, slow songs. That record to me just, so the second album and the 5th album was, and then I just kept going.
Yeah.
But by the time I was writing seriously, you know, writing songs for me to play on stage or whatever, you quit listening as much. You know, I mean, I'd still got records and listened to them. Sure. But it wasn't always Dylan anymore. Right. But I mean, I knew 40 Bob Dylan songs, so I was pretty well versed.
Right, yeah.
I probably don't even know 3 anymore, but well, I get ahead of myself.
Well, that's wonderful.
Okay.
I was going to say, I saw the first time I ever saw you play live, it was on a late Sunday afternoon, and it was way down Highland Street.
Big Otto's.
Just past Park.
Yeah, that's Big Otto's.
Okay, yeah.
It was 1974, and he said, established 1974.
Yep, I remember you played there, and I'm telling you, that place was packed.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you had just kind of come back to town recently, and I guess that's probably when I heard you on the radio, the WLYX thing, and which blew me away.
And Ron Olson was the interviewer.
Right.
That's before he went to FM 100.
Yeah, that's
folks. We're antiques here.
We've just been around. We've seen a lot of it. So before that, you had left Memphis. And did you feel like the need to get out in the world and see what the big world had to offer?
I couldn't stand the thought of being in another classroom. Yeah. And being out and just hitching places and just going around and carrying my guitar and just see what transpired.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
all scared?
No, man, I was never scared.
Yeah.
That's probably maybe why the Lord looked after me. I don't know.
Right.
This guy needs help. No, the people were always good to me, and it could have been a lot different. You know,
Yeah.
I understand that. I understand it perfectly well.
Sure.
And things have changed so drastically. No one picks up a hitchhiker these days.
No.
In my day, when I was a kid, sailors and soldiers would hitch all the time,
Oh,
and
yeah.
people, college kids and girls would some. I mean,
Yeah.
they knew
It was a viable way to get around. I mean, I hitchhiked. I don't know. I hitchhiked there. I would go anywhere.
Yeah. Well, I went to 40 states.
Did you really? Wow. Wow.
I did.
That's amazing.
Went through 40 states, and
That is amazing.
but yeah.
So tell me how you got your first record deal, because those first two records you did were on the Vanguard label.
Yes.
And Vanguard was known as
Folk music.
folk music. I mean, that was, you couldn't get any better.
Well, Electra was great too.
Well, yeah, okay, but Vanguard was known.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
didn't mess around with people who didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah, well, except on my case, I don't
Well,
know what happened there, but yeah, I went to New York City. Well, in this crazy route I was on, I had to come back to Memphis in 1966 for my 18th birthday and register for the draft.
Oh, yeah.
So when I was here, that's in late October, they were starting to hire for Sears Crosstown to go through the Christmas season.
Okay.
So I got a little job there, and I got a little apartment, and I just sort of did that, you know.
Yeah.
And then I was just about to head out again, and a buddy of mine said, there's an opening to be a draftsman at this, there's an opening at a title company, and do you want to do it? Can you draft? I said, well, I did it in school, you know.
Yeah.
And all I thought about was, okay, now I can buy a guitar. So another guitar. But I did. I let my apartment go. Excuse me. My mom let me move back to her house, and she didn't charge me no rent, no food, no nothing.
Yeah.
And she signed me to buy a Martin D28 at Melody Music Shop from old Joe Golden. Sold it to me.
Wow.
And I still have it. It's still under warranty, and it's still it's still a great guitar. Even better now than it ever was.
Yeah.
Even though I don't play the big guitars anymore very much, but it's gigantic. It's a D, you know.
Yeah, right.
So that's how I got that. So I was here from October all the way to the middle of April.
Okay.
Because it took me from January to the middle of April to pay off the guitar. And I hit the road again, just went straight down to New Orleans this time.
Wow.
The other time, when I first left, I went to Murray to see my dad for a little bit. Washington, D.C., see some sights. New York City, see some sights. Back to Memphis about 2 days, and then I was going to Alaska, and these guys picked me up just west of Denver. And they were in a big old flatbed truck with a bunch of heavy machinery chained down to it. And they said, we're going to El Paso. Okay, you ought to go with us.
So we're going to take a left here. Right.
I said, okay. So I went to El Paso.
Oh, that's so funny.
And it took me years and years to get to Alaska, but I finally did it in, I think, 04 or 05 or something like that. But that was my last one to be in. You know.
Wow.
But anyway, did all that stuff, and then what did I do after that? I came back. Oh yeah, well that's when I came back to Memphis to sign up for a draft. So when I left there, I went around to East Tennessee and spent several weeks with some friends of mine who were friends of my parents when they were all in the Army in El Paso.
Really? Okay.
And so I stayed there and just hung and learned to play. And a fella, you were asking me about a record, but my friend's dad, they did a record on me, a little single.
Okay.
I wrote both sides of it, and it's very plain Jane country songs. It's just with all the stock stuff, you know. But they put it out, and they tried to make it do something. It was, not going to ever work, but that was neat. But I hitchhiked from there. I went all the way out to Oregon and then down to California. And I could have gone in '67. I could have gone to San Francisco but I wasn't really a hippie. I was a folkie still.
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
that. So
right.
I decided to go to Newport, Rhode Island to see the folk festival.
Okay,
So
okay.
that's where I went. And
So could you have gone any further? I mean, you're in California and you go to Rhode Island. That's a long way, Keith.
it's a big country, man.
It is a big
Just stick
country.
your thumb out there and let her go, you know.
Wow.
But yeah, up there, and I saw cool people, met some nice people, but the main thing was R.L. Guthrie. They had these things in the day called workshops.
Right.
You know, I went to one with Judy Collins.
Wow.
And there was about 20 people there, 10, 15, 20 people at the most, and talking about songwriting. And she was just being very nice and just so pretty. I couldn't go.
Right.
I can't think straight, my dear. But anyway, I saw when Arlo Guthrie did his.
Yeah.
You know, it was in the afternoon, and I mean there was 1,000 people there. Wow. I mean, mainly because I guess he was Woody's son.
Yeah.
But after this day, he changed all that forever. He played Alice's Restaurant and blew my mind. So I was going back to Memphis to just start gigging and try to, like, you know, not really gigged it or anything like that. I was just learning. I'd listen to guitar players and and I was getting better at playing, but I was getting better at writing songs too.
Sure.
And I met Dusty Rhodes when they did the road show.
Oh, really? Okay, okay.
And I just went up there a lot, and Dusty became my manager.
Yeah.
And I'd heard about you could get on the coffee house, not the coffee house circuit, but the Holiday Inn Lounge circuit.
Right, yeah.
And I thought, well, I'll try that, and I got on for that.
Uh-huh.
And that was the first of '68. And my first gig with that was in Charleston, South Carolina. Wow. 2 weeks. They flew me there and back. Put me food and
really?
Food and room and everything, and gave me $150 a week. And I thought, well, I like show business.
Yeah, right, right. Oh, that's great.
But then they sent me up to Buffalo the first of the summer, and I stayed all summer long playing at the Holiday Inn, the last one before you get to Niagara Falls. So it was jam packed all summer. Yeah, right. They put me up in a little mom and pop motel across the street, and went over to eat and work, and slept up across the street. It was wonderful. Wow. And at the end of that. Up there in Buffalo, I met a lady who had a head shop. And head shops in those they just sold hippie clothes and posters and stuff, candles.
Right, yeah.
Like there wasn't any, you know, we thought you put pot with something, you put coffee in.
Yeah.
And, she said, my son's a musician. And I said, well, I'm playing out here at the thing. He came by and we met and we talked, we made friends and hung out with him. And he told me about this thing called the coffee house circuit. And so when I finished up at the end of August, finished up at the Holiday Inn, we flew over to New York City and auditioned and I got on the coffee house circuit. Wow. And that's why I wound up moving to New York. Uh-huh. I was up there 4.5 years living there, you know.
And were you actively trying to, I mean, did it seem like possible to get a record deal by this time?
I wanted a record deal so bad I was about to make a record in my pants. That's all I thought about.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Bob Dylan's thinking about it. I want to write something for these people. I want to write Blowing in the Wind. I'm thinking, I just want a record deal. I don't even know why. No, I just wanted to get my songs out there.
Yeah.
I'd had a couple of cuts, you know.
Right.
Gentry's cut one, and then the Lonesome Rhodes had cut a song.
Okay.
So I had two whole cuts by the time I moved up there.
Well, that's great. Wow.
But it took a year or so, but I finally got a deal with Vanguard, and so I did the first record with them. Yeah, and that was really neat. That was a learning experience all the way around. And then I came back down through here, and I was getting my tonsils out in reality. And I stayed at my mom's house, and at the end of that, I'd met Nick's a few times. Yeah, he's always a really cool person that I just instantly liked. Yeah, right. Those kind of people. And he was playing me records, and all this stuff sounded so great. I said, man, this record sound great. And he said, tell me about Muscle Shoals. And so I went down there and cut some stuff, and I was a fish out of the water down there.
Really? Yeah.
And Vanguard didn't like it and wouldn't pay for the sessions, and it just became a quagmire, a mess, and an embarrassing situation for me. Yeah. So I said, I'll do a record for y'all, just me solo. Yeah. And then I went out of my contract. And guess what he said? Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So anyway, after that, I did that record, and that record developed a cult following.
Yes.
I mean, but it was cool people like Steve Earle and Jerry Jeff Walker and
Yes.
Willie Nelson and people, you know, that liked that.
If you remember, I had those 2 albums,
Oh,
and I
okay.
gave you, and you gave them to Steve.
Steve, okay, yeah,
Right.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, because he couldn't find the Vanguard records.
Yeah, well, it's not easy.
Yeah.
But
Those are great records, though, man. I love those. I mean,
I listen to that voice and I think, how did you ever get a record there? I was just, and the first thing, Christopherson, when I met Christopherson, he said, excuse me, I was just having dinner at the Kettle of Fish one night, and this guy came over and says, "Are you Keith Sykes?" I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Well, I'm Christopherson. Chris Christopherson, I really like your record." And I went, "Thank you." I didn't know who he was. I go about this in my book, explaining how I kind of fell in and got to be friends. But that was always, stuff like that was neat to have happened if you had a record out.
Sure.
It wouldn't have happened otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Anyway.
Wow. Okay. Well, we're gonna scoot on along here a little bit.
Yeah.
How did you get hooked up with Jimmy Buffett? And did you realize that may have been your lucky day when you met him?
Well, not that very day.
Yeah.
But he didn't have a record deal either. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
And we were both just kind of knocking around, and I just loved the idea of Key West. I went down there one time and saw it and didn't spend any time. And the next year I called Jerry Jeff, because Jerry Jeff had just moved from there to Austin.
Okay.
See, and I was going to ask him who I could get in touch with, or somebody show me around or whatever.
Sure.
He wasn't there, but his girlfriend told me, said, "If you go to this corner and ask for this lady, and you'll meet everybody you want to know in Austin and Key West."
Okay.
So I did that, and I stopped at this corner. There's a guy sweeping up this courtyard, beautiful big conch house, and a guy sweeping up the courtyard. I said, "Does Ashley Simmons live here?" And he said, "Who wants to know?" I went, "Oh, crap, okay." "I'm Keith Sykes. I'm a friend of George F. Walker." And, and he said, "Keith Sykes, I've heard of you. I'm Jimmy Buffett." I said, "I've heard of you too." Because Jerry Jeff, when they were together, he talked about me, and when we were together, he talked about Buffett. That's how we kind of knew each other.
Sure, yeah.
So we met before we knew it.
Right.
And it was just, he was just an instant friendship. I don't know how else to explain it. It just worked right off the bat.
Yeah. So with that, did you know about, I mean, there's obviously a different culture down there. There was beach stuff and surfing and fishing and stuff.
Mainly
did you
fishing.
get right into that? Yeah.
No, that wasn't me, man. But what I wanted to do was, I loved the island tropical thing.
Yeah.
I just there's something about that that's always had a mystique to me.
And
to meet the people who were comfortable in living down there was really, really, really great.
Yeah.
As far as, the boating and swimming and stuff like that were great. The fishing, I'm not a fisherman.
Yeah.
But this huge down there, people.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Spend their kids' inheritance all the time on fishing,
Oh, that's funny. So let's talk a little bit about, let's talk about leading up to, beginning to tour with Jimmy Buffett.
Okay.
Was that, I mean, obviously he recorded a song of yours, and he did a great job on that song too, the Coast of Marseille.
Yeah, he did great.
You did a better job.
Right. I don't know.
Well, I
did a different job.
Yes, it was good stuff.
He went to London Philharmonic to do it. It's like, okay, Jimmy, just make me look bad.
Had a little extra help, right? Yeah, you didn't need that extra help, right?
Well, there was just a song, I actually started it down in Mobile and had the music part when I wrote that lyric.
Yeah.
And people always ask, do you do the music first? Or I don't know, but that one I do know, because those chords were just running with me, and I was just trying to make them all run together and find new fingerings and stuff like that to make sounds on them. And because I don't know the names of those chords, I just play them. And so anyway, that's how that came together. And Jimmy played here at Ellis Auditorium. And I had that record, The Way That I Feel, and he was touring on Changes in Latitudes.
Right.
And we traded albums that night.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, about a year or so later, he says, man, I'm going to cut your song. I went from being a songwriter guy to being a songwriter guy right then.
Right.
As soon as that record came out, I mean, I was like, wow, you wrote that? You know?
Yeah.
And so that's just how, and he did 2 songs on that one record there. He did The Last Line too.
Right, yes, right.
And then we wrote Volcano together when I was in the band.
Uh-huh.
So counting the unreleased Train to Dixie,
Uh-huh.
that gave me 4 cuts of Jimmy Buffett.
Wow. So what, for people who don't know about this, what's it like to be on tour?
Well, on tour, you know, I've done it every which way you can do it. You know, where in a coffee house, I flew just about everywhere.
Yeah.
I could count one hand where I didn't fly, where I did some other mode of transportation. They flew us someplace or flew me someplace.
Yeah.
And then somebody would pick me up and I'd play, and I'd be at the school 2 or 3 days, depending on the program I was doing, you know, and then go fly back home or fly to the next one. Normally it was fly to the next, you know, 2 or 3 week tours is what they usually send me on. But
right.
I did a couple of them that were 10 weeks long, and let me tell you, that's a long time to be in the crowd and not know anybody.
Yeah, right.
Really, I come home just totally nuts, basically.
Yeah. Wow.
But with Jimmy, if that's what you're asking about, that's a totally different animal, man, because you do fly everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just the plane is, you know, us only.
Yeah.
It's a private. And the first plane on my first tour with Jimmy was a 4-engine by-count airliner, 56-passenger airliner that had been converted to 18 places to sit down and hang, plus a stateroom for Jimmy in the back.
Right.
And if you can see that plane in that movie, The Rose, with Bette Midler.
Right, yeah.
That big old plane.
Sure, that's it.
That's it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was the first. And it's just huge, 4 big Rolls Royces, you know, turboprop engines.
Uh-huh.
And, I mean, it's great. But then we'd have to get out of the plane and walk all the way down the steps, you know.
Yeah.
Into the car that was waiting right on the on the airfield, and to get into that. And then I had to take the elevator upstairs to my room. How hard, this is getting tough. My luggage would always be in the room by the time I got there.
Really? Wow.
And you left it, and they would pick it up after you were gone, and it would just appear in your next room. I mean, that's how it was. And on the plane, it was always somebody interesting to talk to who had done a lot of stuff in the music.
Sure, yeah.
And
I bet that was quite an education.
It was fantastic.
And I bet a lot of people got educated by you too, right?
I have no idea about that. I just try to always have a good sense of humor about stuff, and I think Jimmy Buffett liked that a lot.
Yeah.
Rather than just always pining over whatever.
Right.
But I always just was happy to be there.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Wow. You know, we are.
Not many people spill their tops on your television.
Well, nothing, but you know what? You did it. You did it well. I like the way you did that.
Okay.
So we're gonna have you play some music. I've got a feeling we may have to come back and do a part 2 of the talking, because we're about halfway through with what I wanted to talk to you about. But I do want to ask you kind of one thing before we hear you play, because I know people want to hear you play. This is, you know, this is going in the library. This is going to be here forever. Okay. And so, you know, I want to do that. But, you know, you've got a brass note on Beale Street. You have mentored other artists, you know, throughout your career. You have cut a lot of records. You've done all the big things. How do you want to be remembered?
Songwriter. Yeah.
Keith Sykes, songwriter.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, really. Yeah. Because from the time, even before I knew what I was thinking of, there was music playing in my head all the time. Cozy Cole. What was that record? Whatever that thing is, Cozy Cole, Topsy Part 2.
Right. There you go.
You know, that kind of stuff. And I enjoyed a lot of instrumental records. I remember buying the music, the theme from Exodus, just because I thought those 2 guys, Ferrante and Tasha, were knocking it out of the park, you know?
Yeah.
And then I'd turn around the next day and get it way deep into Chuck Berry or Hank Williams or Bob Dylan, which was just, compared to that kind of stuff, just the salt of the earth, which that's really, when I found my soul, for sure, that's where it was.
Yeah.
But that didn't stop me from listening to all kinds of stuff and enjoying it.
Right.
But being a songwriter, I think, it's just, I don't know, Willie. I'm pretty sure that's what I was supposed to be doing all this time. And that all this other stuff was just superfluous. I mean, I shouldn't have even tried it. I should have just stayed there and written songs and be done with it.
Yeah. Wow.
But I had a wandering mind and swift feet and busy hands.
Yeah. That's well put. When you're now, and I know you've been with Jareen for years. How long have y'all been married?
Well, we've been together 50 years, but we've only been married. It'll be 48 years in June.
Okay, yeah. How did she kind of complete some of the things that you were looking?
Evidently. Something worked.
Something worked,
we
yeah.
don't know exactly what it was.
Yeah. But y'all have been partners in this.
Yes. She was we got together in 74, and by 76 she became my manager and has kept that until I really stopped playing for a living in 86. Yeah. I still had to play for a couple of years until the publishing company started making enough to live on. But
sure.
So I had 2 jobs there for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started playing again in 2001, and she'd forgotten about all this music stuff just about, but she got back into it and she's always helped. She's always helped when I needed her.
Yeah.
But when she was really my manager, she did that. I mean, she was 100% all the time.
Oh, wow, that's something. So could you have imagined this life when you were 16 or so?
I don't know. That's so hard to say. I didn't imagine it because I've lived it.
Yeah.
And writing this book, I revisited my entire musical self.
Right.
And it's been a real eye-opener, I got to tell you. And the only, I did a little bit of biography, just to let people know where I'm coming from. But
sure.
90% of this book is just about the stuff I've gone through in music.
Sure.
And so, but as far as thinking about it, I just thought it was all on Mars. I thought records and stuff was just some other planet. I didn't know anything about it. You just went and bought them, and that was it.
Right.
But how you make them, and who puts them out, and who promotes them, and who does this, that, and the other, and who books this guy, is something that I just didn't ever compute with me.
Wow.
And living, I guess I was born with a natural instinct to just not look back very much, and just go forward and go, what's next? Yeah. Because you can't do anything about that.
That's right.
We try to make this next step better.
Yeah.
And I tried to do that. Yeah. But I don't know how I thought about. I just know it. When I was a senior in high school, I remember this over the weekend. I would write names of cities on my notebook.
Yeah.
Other guys had me and Betty or something,
Yeah, right.
Thelma Lou or what, but I just said Rio de Janeiro and whatever. Yeah. And of course I've never made it to Rio yet.
But you were meant for bigger things.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's obvious you were meant for bigger things, and you've done those big things.
Well, I've done some cool stuff. That's no doubt.
Yeah. Well, now let's tell people what's the name of your book, and we're recording this in 2024 in May of 2024, and the book is going to be coming out very soon. So if somebody's watching this in 50 years, the book's already out.
Yeah, let's hope so. I hope I'm still not tweaking it in 50 years. My avatar's over working on it or something.
There you go.
It's called A Very Short Time.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the name of the first song that kind of got my foot in the door.
Right.
Got me on the coffee house circuit and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a beginning for me. It's the first song on my first album.
Yeah.
And it kind of sums up, as long as it may seem, it's pretty short.
Yeah.
Compared to a stone, we just not even here at all.
Right.
So compared to a mountain or compared to the ocean or something.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for being here. This has been fascinating, and our time has gone much too quickly. We're going to have to maybe do some more, okay?
That's up to you, man.
Okay.
I will be glad to come down here and do this, up to a point, as much as you like.
Yeah, right. I mean, you won't be appearing live here every week, I guarantee you.
Okay.
And we'll bring your luggage in.
Okay. Make sure it's at my room when I get there.
That's right. Well, tell you what we're going to do now is we're going to hear Keith play some music, and I am looking forward to this treat. We'll be right back.
May God bless and keep you always. May your wishes all come true. May you always do for others and let others do for you. Train down to Dixieland, you all heard about. It don't run no more, in fact it all run out. I used to hear that whistle blowing like 1,000 screams. Used to be the fastest thing that I'd ever seen. Get out of the way, train is coming. Get out of the way, it's close at hand. Get out of the way, train is coming. Get out of the way of the train to Dixieland. I used to steal away sometimes and go down by the tracks. I'd stand so close the wind would nearly knock me on my back. I won't forget those windy nights or lose that lonesome sound. I won't forget that railroad train that shook me to the ground. Get out of the way, train is coming. Get out of the way, it's close at hand. Get out of the way, train is coming. Get out of the way of the train to Dixieland. The only time I went up north to take a look around, I found out why the train was in a hurry coming down. But years were passing faster than that train could ever run. I guess it went somewhere to die the way John Henry done. Get out of the way, train is coming. Get out of the way, it's close at hand. Get out of the way, train is coming. Get out of the way of the train to Dixieland. Get out of the way of the train to Dixieland. Well, that was a song I wrote, I think about 1972 or 3, somewhere around in there. 72. And I want to play one I wrote with old John Prine. One of my favorite songs that I've had anything to do with. We wrote this song. We felt like we really did a good one. I said, John, we should go out tonight and celebrate. So we did. We wrote it right here in Memphis. Went up on the river at that restaurants overlooking the river, and the boats were going by and the stars on the water just all conspired to make us have a great meal. And we left there and went to hear Peter Herka had a band. And they sounded like the Hot Club of France, the quintet of the Hot Club of France, and we loved that. And then Had a little nightcap, and on the way home we got picked up by a couple of chicks. And they were cops and threw us in jail. But John got the Grammy for this record, and so all's well that ends well, I guess. Is there ever enough space between us to keep us both honest and true? Why is it so hard to sit in the yard and stare at the sky so blue? I get a new way of walking and a new way of talking, honey, when I'm around you. And it gives me the blues if I got some good news and you're not there to bring it to. Life is a blessing, it's a delicatessen of all the little favors you do. Wrapped up together, no matter the weather, honey, you always come through. And it's a measure of treasure that gives me the pleasure of loving you the way I do. And you know I would gladly say I need your love badly and bring these little things to you. 'Cause you got gold, gold inside of you. You got gold, gold inside of you. And I got some gold inside me too. I'm thinking I'm knowing I gotta be going. You know I hate to say so long. It gives me an ocean of mixed up emotion. I'll have to work it out in a song. And I'm leaving a lot for the little I got, but you know a lot of little will do. And if you give me your love, I'll let it shine up above and light my way back home to you. 'Cause you got gold, gold inside of you. You got gold, gold inside of you. And I got some gold inside me too. Well, about a month or so later, John called up and he says, "Man, I've written some more on our song." I said, "John, man, I thought that song was perfect." He said, "I couldn't help myself." So he wrote, "You got wheels turning inside of you. You got wheels turning inside of you. And I got wheels turning inside me too." Okay. I got more clams in that one than seafood restaurant. Let me see, I'll do, Willy asked me to do Coast of Marseille. I'll be glad to do that. I was playing, kind of embarrassing thing, playing Austin City Limits with a bunch of great songwriters. And I got to my part and I said, I wrote this song on Sunday at Thanksgiving. And somebody from the audience said, Thanksgiving's always on a Thursday. And I went, oh yeah, that's right. So anyway, I've been embarrassed, but that was a pretty good one right there. And I'm just now getting used to singing this song with Buffett not being around. So I'm just going to say it like I always said. It's I went from being a songwriter guy to being a songwriter guy when this record came out. So thank you, Jimmy Buffett, one more time. I sat there on the coast of Marseille. My thoughts came by like a wind in my hand. How good it'd be to hold you. How good it'd be to feel like that again. How good it'd be to feel like that again. Would you be remembering me? I asked that question time and again. And the answer came and it haunted me so. I didn't want to think it again. No, I didn't want to think it again. You make it so hard to forget that I haven't stopped loving you yet. When I left the coast of Marseille, I hadn't done what I'd come to do. I spent all the money I'd saved, but I never did get over you. I never did get over you.
You're watching the Library Channel, a broadcast service of the Memphis Public Libraries and the City of Memphis.